Welcome, friends, to another story on the Voice of Life. Life flows like a river, quiet and constant. And within its current, every experience, every story, leaves behind a message. Today, we begin the first of 12 stories that can change the way you see the world. This one is about a universal truth, a law that governs not just humans, but all things in the universe. The law of karma, cause and effect. What you give is what you receive. If there is one law that never changes, that's always at work everywhere with everyone, it is this: good actions bring good results. Harmful actions bring harm. It's not a matter of belief, it's a fact of life. Here's a story from ancient times about the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. After reaching enlightenment, the Buddha traveled far and wide, teaching wisdom and compassion. Everywhere he went, people gathered, listened, and revered him. But not everyone welcomed him with open arms. One day, while he was teaching a Brahmin, a man burning with jealousy and hatred joined the crowd. Quietly, he worked his way through the people until he stood just behind the Buddha. Then, without warning, he scooped up 2 handfuls of sand and threw them straight at the Buddha's eyes. But at that very moment, a sudden gust of wind blew in the opposite direction. The sand, meant to blind the Buddha, turned and blew straight into the Brahmin's own face. In pain and panic, the man dropped to the ground, screaming and rubbing his eyes. The crowd stared at him. Some laughed, others looked on in judgment. Broken and ashamed, he crawled forward and begged the Buddha for forgiveness. The Buddha, calm and full of compassion, said gently, "When you try to hurt a good person, you only end up hurting yourself." Then he added, "Stand up. The pain you feel now is not punishment. It is a lesson. Learn from it and let it lead you to something better." That moment changed the Brahmin's life. He let go of his hatred and became a disciple of the Buddha, devoting himself to the path of wisdom and peace. A simple story, but a powerful truth. What you send into the world comes back to you. Karma isn't delayed justice. It's instant reflection. Sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce, but always fair. Our thoughts become choices. Our choices become habits. And our habits shape the life we live. So the next time you're tempted to hurt someone, with words, actions, or silence, remember that harm circles back. Always hurt someone, and you hurt yourself first. Thank you for listening. Join me next time for story number 2. A candle, a marriage, and the price of betrayal. Until then, walk gently, live wisely, and trust the law of life. In our first story, we explored how karma is instant and real, even if we can't see it right away. Today's story is a deeper look at love, loyalty, and the painful price of betrayal. It starts with a man who's torn between his wife and another woman. One day, a troubled man came to the Buddha. He said, "Blessed One, I have a wife, but I'm also in love with another woman. I don't know what to do. My heart is torn." The Buddha looked at him calmly and asked, "Tell me honestly, are you certain this woman you're in love with now is your one and only true love?" The man hesitated. "I think so, but I'm not completely sure." The Buddha then pointed to an incense burner on the table. "Look at the 3 candles in front of you. Which one is shining the brightest?" The man stared for a while. "They all look the same. I can't tell." The Buddha nodded. "Exactly. Those 3 candles are like the 3 women in your life. The past, the present, and the possible future. Desire blurs your vision. You think this new love is special, but when you look again later, it's just another flame." Then the Buddha said, "Now take 1 candle, hold it close. Look again." The man picked one up and stared at the flame. "This one looks the brightest now." "Yes," the Buddha replied. That's not because the candle changed. It's because you chose to focus on it. The one you give your attention to will always feel like the most important. But desire fades. What feels brightest today might feel ordinary tomorrow. Then the Buddha said softly, "Your wife is the one who chose to walk life with you. She's been the steady flame beside you, even when you stopped noticing her light." The man was silent for a moment. Then he bowed his head and whispered, "I understand now. I was about to throw away something real for something that only looked bright. Love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice we make, again and again. Too often, people chase the thrill of something new and end up losing what was truly meaningful. Infidelity doesn't just break trust. It breaks your future, your peace, and your own sense of self." The Buddha once said, "Of all the evil acts, lust is the most destructive. It clouds the mind and corrupts the soul." That's why one of Buddhism's 5 precepts is to avoid sexual misconduct, because it destroys more than you know. So, if you're ever tempted by a new flame, ask yourself, is it really brighter? Or am I just holding it closer? Because what truly lasts is not what burns brightest, but what stays lit the longest. Join me next time for story number 3. The eyes of heaven, karma never misses. If you've ever looked at the world and thought, why do bad people seem to win while good people suffer? Then this story is for you. Because the law of karma doesn't just operate in days or years. It moves through lifetimes, and it never misses. In ancient China, during the Sui dynasty, lived a powerful man named General Zhao. He had 2 sons, the older named Ming, and the younger named Yuan. When Zhao grew old, he divided his wealth. Ming, the elder, was given the larger share. But after their father passed away, Yuan betrayed him. Out of greed, Yuan took everything, the land, the house, the inheritance, leaving his brother with only a small hut and a garden. Ming, humble and kind, didn't fight back. He simply left and lived a quiet life working as a servant. Not long after, Yuan died unexpectedly. But karma was not done yet. He was reborn as Ming's son, a child named Hua. Later, Ming also passed away and was reborn into Yuan's old household as his own grandson, named Tian. Time passed and once again the roles flipped. Now, the soul of the betrayed had power, and the soul of the betrayer had become a servant in the very household he once ruled. One day, Hua's mother revealed a family secret. "Your uncle Yuan stole everything from your father Ming. That's why we lost everything. That's why you serve that family today." Upon hearing this, Hua was filled with rage. He followed Tian into the mountains, determined to kill him and take revenge. But deep in the forest, they came across an old monk sitting peacefully in a small wooden hut. The monk looked up and said calmly, "Put down the knife. You're chasing your own shadow." Hua was stunned. The monk continued, "You were Yuan in your past life. You're the one who stole. Tian is Ming. Come back to repay the debt." The boy collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed by the truth. The monk then gave Hua a cup of tea with medicine. As he drank, visions of his past life came flooding back. He saw himself stealing from his brother, and now suffering as his own karma. Both Hua and Tian gave up all worldly desires that day. They chose to become monks, and lived the rest of their lives in peace and repentance. This story sounds like myth, but its message is real. Karma doesn't forget. What you take unjustly, you will return. What you do to others, you will one day face. Justice is not always loud. Sometimes it whispers across generations. So if you've ever been wronged, don't seek revenge. Let the universe do its work. And if you've wronged someone, don't wait. Make it right before karma comes collecting. Because in the eyes of heaven, nothing is lost. Every deed has a return address. Next story takes us into a temple, a place of peace, prayer, and one tragic secret. Because sometimes, even monks are not free from karma. And sometimes the loudest cry for justice comes from a silent drum. In the Black Mountain Temple behind the northern cliffs of Mount Wutai, there lived a senior monk named Master Fai. For 20 years, he served faithfully as the monastery's steward. He was in charge of all donations and offerings. To the outside world, he appeared upright, disciplined, even revered. But in secret, he had used the temple's donation money, meant for sacred work, to buy land, rice fields, and cattle for personal gain. After Master Fai passed away, the land he purchased was passed down to his disciple Minghui, who became the new steward of the temple. One night, Minghui had a terrible dream. His old master Fai appeared, crying in agony. "Help me," he begged. "I used temple funds to buy land, and I was reborn as a farm ox. For 30 years, I've plowed the fields I once bought with sacred money. Now I'm old, sick, and about to be sold for slaughter. I have one final request. Make a drum from my hide, write my name on it, and beat it during temple chants, so that I might be released from this suffering." Minghui awoke in a sweat. The next day, he traveled to the farmland his master once bought. There, he found an old ox, weak and dying. And when the ox looked at him, tears rolled down its eyes. The ox was sacrificed. Its hide became a temple drum. Minghui did as the dream requested. He wrote his master's name, Fai, across the drum's surface, and beat it with every dawn and dusk prayer. It said that for years during those chants, the sound of the drum wasn't just thunderous, but hauntingly human, as if a soul cried through every beat. Some said it was sorrow, some said it was release, but all agreed karma had completed its circle. This story teaches a lesson rarely spoken but always true. You can't cheat the sacred. Misusing what's meant for good, even quietly, even just once, plants the seeds of suffering. Whether it's a temple, a marriage, a promise, or someone's trust, misusing it for selfish gain always comes back. And sometimes, the cost isn't just in this life, but in the next. As the saying goes, the heavens may be silent, but they are never blind. So give purely, live truthfully, and remember, every offering comes with a mirror. Next story is a haunting reminder that greed doesn't just destroy a man, it haunts his family. You may think you're getting away with it, but when you rob others of their blessings, you may be taking away your own future. During the Qing dynasty, in the town of Menghua, Yunnan province, there was a high-ranking official named Tao Wujie. He was known as a strict but honest magistrate. But his son, Tao Mo, was not cut from the same cloth. Tao Mo was a scholar by title, but in his heart he was a liar, a cheat, and a thief. One year, a deadly plague swept through the town of Wuxi. Bodies were piling up. The dead were buried without proper rites. In the midst of this crisis, a kind local man named Hua decided to help. He donated several ancient paintings from his family collection, asking Tao Mo to sell them and use the money to bury the victims with dignity. Tao Mo traveled to Suzhou and sold the paintings for 800 silver taels. But when he returned, he gave Hua only 80. The paintings were worthless, he lied. With only 80 taels, Hua could afford to bury just a few bodies. The rest were left to decay in open fields. Tao Mo, meanwhile, kept over 700 silver taels for himself. A short while later, he suddenly fell ill and died young, without warning. Tao Wujie was devastated. He couldn't understand why a good man like his son would die so suddenly. That night, Tao Wujie had a dream. In the dream, a divine messenger from the underworld appeared, holding a decree from the Eastern Mountain God, a judge of karmic justice. "You are a man of integrity," the deity said, "but your son stole money meant to bury the dead. He robbed the living of dignity and the dead of peace. He blocked the blessings of hundreds of souls. That debt had to be repaid." Tao woke in shock. He ran to his son's study. There, in a hidden trunk, he found over 700 silver taels, exactly the amount missing from the painting sale. Even his daughter-in-law had no idea it was there. In that moment, Tao Wujie understood. His son's wealth had come at the cost of hundreds of human souls. From that day on, Tao Wujie never spoke of his son's death again. He knew it was justice, because what you steal from others may buy comfort for a day, but it takes years off your life, and sometimes it even follows you into the next. We think money is everything, until it buys us nothing but sorrow. So remember, you may hide your greed from men, but never from heaven. Karma doesn't forget, and no silver is worth a soul. Join me next time for story number 6. A Lover's Curse, the Dark Side of Infidelity. Have you ever thought you were in love, only to later realize you were just chasing a feeling? Today's story explores something millions face, the temptation of infidelity, and the cost it brings when you follow your desires, instead of honoring your commitments. Over 2,500 years ago, a man came to the Buddha with a heavy heart. "Lord Buddha," he said, "I have a wife, but I'm deeply in love with another woman. I feel torn. I don't know what to do." The Buddha looked at him gently and asked, "Is this new woman the one and only love of your life?" The man hesitated. I'm not sure." The Buddha then pointed to a table with 3 burning candles. "Look at these flames," he said. "Which one is brightest?" The man looked puzzled. "They all seem the same." The Buddha smiled. "Love is like these flames. When you're close to one, it feels the brightest. But take a step back, and they all blur into each other." He continued, "Now hold one flame close to your eyes. What do you see?" The man brought the candle near. "This one. It shines the brightest now." The Buddha nodded. "That's how desire works. What you focus on becomes everything. But the moment you put it back, it fades into the rest. Your so-called one true love is just a flame you've chosen to stare at too long." The Buddha's teaching was clear. Infatuation is not love. Love is what remains after the desire fades. And the greatest tragedy? Many lose a real home chasing a hollow spark. The man left that day with tears in his eyes, finally seeing the woman he had at home, not as ordinary, but as sacred. In this modern world, we often confuse momentary passion with lasting love. But ask yourself, would you give up your family, your peace, your integrity, for a passing flame? Many do, and what they get in return is heartbreak, regret, and a soul that never feels whole again. The Buddha once said, "In all evils, lust is the most dangerous, because lust clouds the mind, blinds the heart, and leads even the wisest into ruin. So guard your vows, guard your gaze. The candle that burns brightest is the one you keep lit with loyalty. And if you ever feel tempted, look not at the flame you're drawn to, but at the person who's always been holding the match for you." We revisit a temple shadowed by silence, not because of the prayers inside, but because of the cry of a soul trapped in an animal's body. This is the story of a monk who once stood above others in wisdom, but fell into the body of a beast. Long ago, behind the northern slope of Mount Wutai, stood a quiet temple near Black Mountain. The monk Fai had served as the abbot steward for over 20 years. He was respected, trusted, and revered. But beneath the robe of dignity was a man who made a grave choice. He used the temple's donation money, sacred offerings, to buy land. He told no one. He used temple coins to buy rice fields and livestock, then secretly passed them down to his disciple Minghui when he died. Years later, Minghui began to dream. In his sleep, he saw his late master. But this time, Fai was no longer proud. He was weeping. "I used the Buddha's offerings for selfish gain," he confessed. "Now I've been reborn as a plow ox, cursed to till the very land I bought with holy funds. 30 years, no rest, no peace." And then came his plea. "When I die, use my skin to make a temple drum. Write my name on it. Let every beat echo my repentance, so I may one day be free." Years later, Minghui began to dream. In his sleep, he saw his late master. But this time, Fai was no longer proud. He was weeping. "I used the Buddha's offerings for selfish gain," he confessed. "Now I've been reborn as a plow ox, cursed to till the very land I bought with holy funds. 30 years, no rest, no peace." And then came his plea. "When I die, use my skin to make a temple drum. Write my name on it. Let every beat echo my repentance, so I may one day be free." Studio microphone, the revelation. Seeing the truth, Minghui woke up in shock. That same day, he traveled to the farmland once owned by his master. And there he found a dying ox, old, frail, barely breathing. But when the ox turned its head, it wept. Tears ran down its cracked face, just like in the dream. Minghui understood immediately. He honored the wish. After the ox passed, its hide became a temple drum. On the surface, Minghui wrote the name Fai, and during every morning chant, the monks struck it, bang, bang, bang. Some say the sound wasn't of wood and leather, but of a soul begging for release. This story isn't just about monks or temples. It's about anyone given a sacred responsibility, and what happens when you use that trust for selfish gain. Whether you're a teacher, a parent, a priest, a boss, you're held accountable, especially when what you've been given is holy. And even if no one else sees, heaven sees, and karma remembers. What is stolen in silence will be screamed in suffering. You may escape the judgment of men, but never the justice of the divine. So walk humbly, lead honorably, and never forget, every title you hold is borrowed, and every choice you make will echo into your next life. Next story is unlike any other. It reminds us that the people we hurt might return in the next life, not as strangers, but as those closest to us. This is the story of two brothers. One betrayed the other, but fate made sure they would meet again. Only this time their roles had reversed. In the ancient Sui dynasty of China, lived a wealthy nobleman named Tru Luong Tuong. He had two sons. The elder, Man, honest and upright. The younger, Don, clever but selfish. When their father passed, the inheritance was split. Man, being the older brother, received the larger share. But Don wasn't satisfied. Driven by envy, he schemed and stole everything: land, wealth, livestock, leaving his brother with nothing but a shack and a small patch of dirt. Man had no choice but to work as a laborer, while Don enjoyed a life of luxury. Not long after, Don died, but fate had something in store. He was reborn as Man's own son. Man, still poor, raised this child now named Hone, without ever knowing that his own son had once been the brother who betrayed him. Years later, Man passed away, and in a strange twist, he was reborn into Don's family as his own grandson named Tien. Tien, the grandson, grew up in wealth. Hone, the son, grew up in poverty. Hone ended up working as a servant in the household of Tien, his former brother. One day, Hone overheard a family member whisper, "Your uncle once stole everything from your grandfather. That's why we're rich. And you're a servant." Rage filled Hone's heart. He planned revenge. On a temple pilgrimage through the mountains, Hone lured Tien deep into a canyon, pulled out a knife, and prepared to strike. But fate had one final twist. Just as Hone raised his blade, an old monk stepped out of the shadows. "Stop," he said. "You are not killing your enemy. You are killing yourself." The monk gave Hone a bitter herb to drink. Visions flooded his mind, of his past life as Doan, of stealing from his brother, of being reborn as his son. He collapsed to his knees, shaking. "The karma you tried to escape," the monk whispered. "You were born into it. You lived it. And now, it's time to forgive it." We often think karma is abstract, that it happens to someone else, somewhere else in another time. But sometimes, karma is in your own bloodline, in your child, your parent, your spouse. The very people you hurt today may return as the people who test your heart tomorrow. "Hurt no one," says the ancient wisdom, "for even if they disappear, they may return in your cradle." In the end, both Hone and Tien renounced worldly life. They entered the monastery together. Forgiveness became their offering. Redemption, their new inheritance. Today's tale is a stark reminder that power without conscience is just a slow-motion collapse. And when those in power think they're above justice, heaven answers. This is the story of a man named Vong on Thursday, a judge who thought he could rewrite karma. But in the end, karma rewrote him. During the Eastern Han Dynasty, Vong on Thursday rose from obscurity to become a powerful criminal judge. But his rise wasn't noble, it was calculated and cruel. He bribed, deceived, and aligned himself with corrupt officials to climb the ladder. Once in power, he unleashed terror. Instead of justice, he offered punishment for profit. Innocent men and women were tortured, families torn apart. All it took to escape death, a bribe. All it took to die, being poor. Vong was brutal with the weak and servile to the rich. He turned his court into a marketplace where law was for sale and human lives were bargaining chips. Even royal confiscations were tampered with. Gold meant for the emperor ended up in Vong's private vault. He believed he was untouchable, but karma never forgets. One day, a whistleblower came forward, exposing Vong's crimes to the imperial court. Charges of abuse, extortion, and even treason were laid against him. Knowing he'd be executed, Vong took his own life, but death was not his escape. It was only the beginning. One by one, his co-conspirators were arrested. Their titles meant nothing. Their bribes couldn't save them. The sword of justice may be slow, the court announced, but it never fails to fall. People whispered that Vong's soul wandered, unable to find peace. His home grew cold. His name was cursed, and many believed his next life would be spent in chains, born into the poverty he once punished. Authority is a sacred trust, not a license to dominate, but a calling to protect. When that trust is broken, no earthly court is needed, because heaven has eyes. And when the weight of blood, tears, and injustice becomes too heavy, collapses the empire you built, even if it's just one man wide. Vong on Thursday learned too late. What you do to the weak is recorded by the strong. And when karma comes knocking, not even a judge can escape the verdict. Next story is a chilling reminder. When you steal from goodness, you don't just lose your soul, you curse your bloodline. This is a tale of a father's righteousness, a son's greed, and the wrath of the unseen world. During the Qing dynasty in China, a great plague swept through Wuxi, a city in Jiangsu province. Corpses lay unburied. Families vanished overnight. But in the midst of despair, a kind-hearted man named Hoa tried to make a difference. He donated priceless family paintings, asking a scholar named Tao Mo to sell them and use the money to buy coffins for the dead. Tao Mo traveled to Suzhou, where an art collector named Trang gladly paid 800 silver taels for the paintings, moved by the charitable purpose. But when Tao returned to Wuxi, he gave Hoa only 80 taels. "This was all I could get," he lied. The rest he kept for himself. As a result, many plague victims remained unburied, their bodies left to rot under the sun. Not long after, Tao Mo fell violently ill and died suddenly. His father, Tao Ngutap, a respected government official, was devastated. "Why would heaven punish my only son?" he cried. In his sorrow, he wrote a letter to the god of the Eastern Peak, pleading for an explanation. That night, Tao had a dream. In the dream, a man in green robes, a messenger of heaven, summoned him. They arrived at a celestial courthouse. There, the Eastern Peak deity said, "You are an honest man, but your son stole blessings meant for the dead. He traded charity for silver, and now thousands lie unburied because of him. If you don't believe me, open the locked chest in your son's study." Tao woke in terror. Rushing to the study, he found the chest. Inside were over 700 silver taels. That day, Tao Ngutap realized the truth. His son didn't die by chance. He died by karma. And not just karma for stealing money, but for stealing blessings, for hoarding fortune while others suffered, for betraying the dead and mocking the divine. Tao never spoke of his son's death again. He knew it was justice. Wealth is not evil, but ill-gotten wealth is a ticking time bomb. What you gain through betrayal will be taken back with interest. He who steals alms steals from the heavens, and the heavens always collect. In our next episode, we'll explore part 11, the curse of the hidden tithe, when sacred offerings become chains. Join us as we uncover another chapter in the eternal balance of justice. Until then, give with clean hands, or don't give at all. Next story takes us into the shadowy space between devotion and deception. Because when you take what was meant for the divine, you don't just steal gold, you steal from heaven itself. This is the haunting tale of a monk who broke a sacred trust and found himself enslaved even after death. In the remote region behind Mount Wutai, a quiet monastery housed a head monk named Fap I. For 20 years, he served as abbot and treasurer, overseeing the monastery's donations. The money was meant for rebuilding temples, helping the poor, and honoring the divine. But Fap I had a secret. Instead of using the offerings righteously, he diverted them to purchase land for himself. Large rice fields in Nanyuan, all titled under the name of his chosen successor, a disciple named Min Hoi. He told himself it was for the future of the temple, but his heart knew better. The donations were sacred, and he used them for personal legacy. After Fap I passed away, Min Hoi inherited both the temple and the land. But then, something strange happened. A local farmer acquired a new ox, an old, frail creature, but unusually obedient. For 30 years, that ox plowed fields tirelessly, never resting, never rebelling. One night, Min Hoi had a dream. In it, Fap I appeared, covered in sweat and tears, his voice trembling. "That ox is me. I was reborn as a beast because I stole from the offerings. I am paying back the labor I robbed from heaven. Please, help me escape." Fap, I begged. "Take the ox's hide when it dies. Make it into a temple drum. Write my name on it. And each time it struck, may my spirit climb one step closer to release." When Min Hoi awoke, he was shaken to his core. The next day, he visited the ox. It was old, barely able to move, and its eyes seemed almost human. Min Hoi did exactly as the dream instructed. The ox passed not long after. Its skin was turned into a drum, and every morning during prayer, the monks struck it, as if calling a soul back from damnation. Alms are not donations, they're vows, given in faith. And when you take what was offered to heaven and spend it on yourself, you borrow from the divine ledger. But debt to the heavens is always collected in this life or the next. Even a monk can become an ox if his heart is crooked. The divine does not judge by robes, only by righteousness. This is the final episode of our 12-part series, Lessons from the Invisible World. Today we share a chilling truth. Heaven sees everything, even if no one else does. You may think you've buried your sins, but the sky is not blind. This is the story of a man who thought he'd escape judgment, until death revealed what life tried to hide. In ancient China, there was a high-ranking official. On the surface, he was respected, feared, a man who dispensed justice and order. But beneath that mask, he was ruthless. He took bribes, framed innocents, executed rivals, and used the law for his own ambition. No one dared challenge him. No court could touch him. And so, he believed he was untouchable. But time doesn't forget. And one day he grew ill violently suddenly. Within days he died. His servants whispered. His family mourned. But what happened next, no one could explain. That night, a Taoist priest nearby had a vision. In the vision, the official stood before the Jade Emperor's court, the divine courtroom of heaven. The gods unrolled scrolls, filled with his crimes, every bribe, every murder, every innocent punished. One by one, the spirits of the wronged appeared, weeping, screaming, begging for justice. He tried to argue. He claimed ignorance. But heaven needs no witnesses. The truth is already known. "You wore the robe of justice," said the judge, "but you turned it into a cloak of blood." His sentence? Not hell, not rebirth, but something worse, to wander as a ghost, tied to the courthouse where he once ruled, forever hearing the screams of those he condemned, never touching, never speaking, just watching, as real justice is finally served by others. You can hide your sins from the world, but not from yourself, and certainly not from the sky. The sky has no voice, but it always sees. The law may be bent by men, but never by heaven. And when you betray what's right, justice may not come in your lifetime, but it comes. In death, in rebirth, in suffering you thought you'd escaped. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Through 12 stories of karma, virtue, sin, and redemption. These were not just stories, but reflections of the unseen forces that shape our lives. If there's one lesson to remember, let it be this: live with a clear heart, act with clean hands, and never think you walk unseen. Because even if the world forgets, heaven remembers.